Hey everyone, ready to level up your auditing game? Today we're taking a deep dive into Indeed.com's guide to senior auditor interviews.
Yeah, this should be interesting.
Whether you're gearing up for an interview or just curious about what it takes to reach those upper levels of the audit world, this is for you.
Absolutely.
We'll break down the key skills and qualities you need to stand out.
And highlight some of those tricky interview questions. You know, the ones that really make you think.
Exactly. So first up, let's talk about what hiring managers are really looking for in a senior auditor.
All right. Indeed emphasizes a few things like analytical skills, problem solving, and leadership.
Okay, those sound pretty standard for any senior role.
Yeah.
But what makes them so crucial specifically for a senior auditor?
We'll take analytical skills, for example.
Yeah.
It's not just about being good at math.
Right.
Senior auditors are dealing with some seriously complex financial reports.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They need that sharp eye to spot those tiny inconsistencies that could signal a much bigger issue.
It's like they're financial detectives.
Exactly. And the stakes can be really high. Remember that mention a recent high-profile case scandal?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Talk about a wake-up call. That whole thing really highlighted how a lack of strong analytical skills can have some serious consequences.
Absolutely. Okay, so analytical skills check. What about problem solving?
Another critical one.
How about that?
But again, it goes deeper than just finding errors.
Okay.
A senior auditor needs to not only identify those problems, but also come up with solutions that actually work.
That makes sense.
Solutions that are practical, actionable, and presented in a way that clients can understand.
Right, because it's not enough to just have the answer. You've got to be able to explain it to people who might not be finance experts.
Exactly. It's that blend of technical know-how and communication skills that really sets a senior auditor apart.
So it's not just what, it's how you communicate it.
Got it.
And what about leadership?
Ah, leadership.
A senior auditor is not working solo. They got a whole team to guide, right?
Absolutely. They're leading a team, making sure the work is top-notch, and upholding the quality of the entire audit. It's about inspiring confidence, setting those high standards, and driving those results.
So it sounds like a senior auditor needs a pretty diverse skill set. You've got the technical side, the communication piece, and then those leadership qualities. Which one would you say is the most challenging to master?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
I think it's finding that sweet spot between being a technical expert and being able to communicate effectively with all sorts of different people.
Okay.
You're talking to your team. You're explaining things to clients who might not be finance gurus. It's a real balancing act.
So it's almost like you need to be bilingual. Fluent in finance, speak A&D plain English.
Haha. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that kind of skill takes time and experience to develop.
Makes sense. Now, Indeed provides some sample interview questions and answers to help people showcase these skills. Would you say those samples are a good starting point, or should candidates aim for something a bit more personalized?
I'd say they're a decent foundation, but
Yeah.
you definitely don't want to sound like a robot reciting those generic answers.
Right.
Use those questions as a jumping off point.
Okay.
Share specific examples from your own experiences that really show what you're capable of.
So don't just say you're a problem solver. Show them how you've tackled tricky situations in the past.
Exactly. Like, let's say they ask about ensuring accuracy in your work. Instead of listing techniques, talk about a time when your attention to detail helped uncover a significant error. You know something that saved your company money or streamlined a process.
Oh, I like that. Give them a story. People remember stories way better than just a list of skills. What about those behavioral questions?
Oh, yeah, those are classic.
Things like, describe a time when you identified an inconsistency during an audit. How could someone answer that in a way that really highlights those soft skills we were talking about?
The trick with those questions is to showcase not just your technical skills, but also how you handled the situation. Did you communicate the issue clearly and tactfully? Did you work collaboratively with the client to find a solution? Those are the details that really show your leadership potential.
So it's not just about finding the problem. It's about being part of the solution.
Exactly.
Now, let's say you've aced the basic questions, and then they throw you a curveball. Something like, how do you ensure compliance with different regulatory standards? That one feels like it requires a deeper understanding of the role.
You're right. Those kinds of questions are meant to test your strategic thinking
Okay.
and your ability to connect the dots between regulations and what they mean in the real world. You can't just say, I follow the rules. You
Mm.
need to explain why those rules exist, how you stay updated on those ever-changing regulations, and show that you're proactive about managing risk.
So it's about understanding the WHY, not just the what.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to questions about your communication skills, like how do you explain complex financial information to non-financial staff? You need to show that you can adapt your communication style to different audiences.
Right? Make it relevant to them.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, how does a senior auditor's role actually differ from a regular auditor's?
Good question.
Indeed's FAQ section touches on that, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Sure. So at its core, the senior auditor role comes with way more responsibility and those leadership expectations we talked about.
Okay.
While a regular auditor might be focused on specific tasks within an audit, a senior auditor is overseeing the whole shebang,
The whole shebang, right?
from planning and execution to reviewing and reporting.
So they're leading the charge, making sure everything runs smoothly and ultimately guaranteeing the quality of the audit.
That's a great way to put it. They're also mentoring those junior staff members and fostering a culture of excellence within the team.
Wow, it sounds like a pretty demanding role,
Yeah.
but also one with a lot of potential for growth. What kind of career paths can someone expect after reaching that senior auditor level?
Well, that's where things get really exciting. The skills and experience you gain as a senior auditor can open doors to a bunch of different opportunities. A natural progression would be moving up to audit manager or director, where you'd be overseeing larger teams and more complex audits.
So basically, climbing the ladder within the auditing world. What about outside of traditional auditing? Are there other fields where these skills are valuable?
Absolutely. A lot of senior auditors use their expertise to transition into roles in financial management, risk management, or even consulting. Some even go on to become CFOs, bringing their financial knowledge and leadership skills to the executive level.
Wow, so it's not just a stepping stone, it's a launch pad.
Mm.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about how to stay ahead of the curve in this constantly evolving field. Indeed mentions the importance of continuous learning. What does that look like in practice?
It's all about being proactive and seeking out opportunities to expand your knowledge base. Attending industry workshops and conferences is a great way to stay on top of emerging trends and best practices while also networking with other professionals. Joining professional organizations like Mention a Relevant Organization gives you access to valuable resources and helps you stay connected to the wider auditing community.
So it's not just about what you learned in school or on the job. It's about staying curious and engaged with the profession.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of just staying informed. Subscribe to industry publications, follow thought leaders on social media, and make it a habit to read up on the latest developments in auditing standards and regulations.
So basically, make continuous learning a part of your professional DNA.
Exactly.
And speaking of standards and regulations, you mentioned something earlier called the IAASB. Can you tell us a little more about what that is and why it's important?
Sure. The IAASB stands for the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board. They're an independent global organization that sets ethical standards and develops high-quality auditing and assurance standards. Their work is crucial because it helps ensure consistency and quality in audits all around the world, which ultimately contributes to greater financial stability and trust in the global marketplace.
So it's about creating a level playing field for auditing on a global scale. Wow, it sounds like there's a lot to keep up with in this profession.
There is, but that's also what makes it so dynamic and rewarding. You're always learning, adapting, and challenging yourself to stay ahead of the curve.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break to let all of that information sink in.
Good idea.
But don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll be diving even deeper into the world of senior auditors, exploring how technology is transforming the field and those ethical challenges that come with the role. It's going to be fascinating. Stay tuned.
I can't wait.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how crucial it is to be a lifelong learner in the auditing world. And you know, one thing that's really shaken things up is technology.
Yeah, it's totally changed how audits are done. From planning to reports, everything's different.
It's amazing how much things have changed even in just the last few years.
I know, right? Think about it. Not that long ago, auditors were buried under mountains of paper, manually checking every single number. So tedious.
Ugh, I can't even imagine.
Right.
So how has technology made life easier for auditors? What kind of tools are they using these days?
Well, there's some seriously powerful software out there that can handle those repetitive tasks.
Oh, that's got to be a relief.
It frees up auditors to focus on the big picture, analyzing data, assessing risk, making those judgment calls.
Right, so they can actually use their expertise instead of just crunching numbers all day.
Exactly. And we're talking about things like data analytics software that can sift through massive amounts of information and spot patterns that humans might miss.
Data analytics. That's something I've heard a lot about, but I'm not really sure what it means in the context of auditing.
Oh, sure, I can explain that. In simple terms, data analytics in auditing is using software to examine all that financial data, identify trends, and pinpoint potential red flags.
Okay.
It's like having a super-powered magnifying glass that helps auditors zero in on areas that need more attention.
So it's not just about crunching numbers anymore. It's about understanding what those numbers mean. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about artificial intelligence? I hear that a lot too. How's that impacting the world of auditing?
Well, AI is still kind of in its early stages in auditing,
Mm-hmm.
but it has huge potential.
Okay, I can see that.
Just imagine AI algorithms that can learn from past audits, identify high-risk areas, and even predict potential fraud. That's going to be a total game changer.
Wow, that sounds almost futuristic.
I know, right?
But it also makes me wonder, with all this automation, will we even need human auditors in the future?
That's a question I get a lot, and it's understandable why people are thinking about that.
Yeah.
But here's the key. Technology can handle those repetitive tasks for sure, but it's the human element that's irreplaceable.
Okay.
The critical thinking, the ethical judgment, the ability to connect the dots, those are things that machines just can't replicate.
So it's more of a partnership between human and machine rather than a replacement.
Exactly. Technology is a tool, a
Right.
powerful tool, but it can never replace the need for human expertise and insight.
That's reassuring. Now I'm curious, what does all this mean for aspiring senior auditors? What kind of tech skills should they be focusing on to succeed in this digital age?
Well, a solid understanding of data analytics is crucial.
Okay.
You need to be comfortable working with those huge data sets, interpreting the results, and using those insights to inform your audit strategy.
Right.
Familiarity with different auditing software platforms is also important.
Got it.
And while you don't need to be a coding whiz, having some basic programming knowledge can be super valuable.
Makes sense, especially as technology keeps evolving. So it's not just about being a numbers person anymore. It's about being tech savvy and data driven.
That's it. The future of auditing is digital. Those who embrace technology are going to have a definite advantage. Now, speaking of emerging technologies, you mentioned blockchain earlier.
Oh yeah, blockchain. That's one I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
It can be a little confusing, I know.
It seems like it's mostly associated with cryptocurrencies. So I'm not sure how it fits into the auditing world.
That's a common misconception, actually. While blockchain is the tech behind cryptocurrencies, its applications go way beyond that.
Okay, interesting.
In the context of auditing, blockchain has the potential to revolutionize how we track and verify financial transactions.
Okay, now that sounds really interesting. How would that work exactly?
Imagine a world where every financial transaction is recorded on this secure, unchangeable ledger that can be accessed by authorized parties in real time.
Okay, I'm following you.
That would make it much easier for auditors to trace the flow of funds, identify any anomalies, and make sure those financial records are accurate and reliable.
So blockchain could basically create a tamper-proof audit trail.
Exactly. It would make it incredibly difficult to manipulate or hide financial information, which would be huge for transparency and accountability.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. It sounds like blockchain could really shake things up for auditors.
It definitely has the potential. Of course, it's still early days for blockchain and auditing, and there are challenges to overcome, but it's a tech worth paying attention to for sure.
Absolutely. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground on the technical side of things, but let's not forget about the human element. We touched on the importance of ethics for senior auditors earlier. What are some of the ethical dilemmas someone in this role might face?
That's a great question and an important one. Senior auditors have a huge responsibility to make sure financial information is accurate and trustworthy.
Right. A lot of people are relying on them.
And that means they often find themselves in tough situations. They have to balance their professional obligations with their ethical principles. It's not always easy.
I can imagine. Can you give us an example of what kind of situation that might be?
Sure, let's say you're leading an audit and you uncover evidence that suggests potential fraud or wrongdoing within the company. What do you do?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. On the one hand, you have to report any illegal or unethical activities.
Right?
But on the other hand, you don't want to damage the relationship with the client or cause unnecessary harm to the company.
You got it. It's a complex situation. There's no easy answer.
Yeah, that's a real dilemma.
Senior auditors have to carefully consider those gray areas, seek guidance from their professional code of ethics, and maybe even consult with a mentor or legal counsel.
So it's not just about crunching numbers and following rules, it's about making sound ethical judgments.
Exactly. Senior auditors are often the gatekeepers of financial transparency and accountability. They play a vital role in maintaining trust and stability in the business world.
That's a powerful responsibility. It
Yeah.
must take a lot of courage and integrity to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult.
Absolutely. Ethical dilemmas are just part of the job as a senior auditor. And handling those challenges well requires a strong moral compass, a commitment to doing the right thing, and the ability to make those tough calls with confidence and integrity.
Well said. Okay, so we've explored those technical skills, the data-driven mindset, and the ethical considerations that are so important for a senior auditor. But what about the soft skills? How important are things like communication, teamwork, and leadership in this role?
You're absolutely right. Soft skills are essential for a senior auditor. I mean, you're not just dealing with numbers all day, you're dealing with people.
Right, it's a people business too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it. You're constantly interacting with clients, colleagues, junior staff.
Hmm.
You need to be able to communicate clearly, listen actively, and build consensus. And then there are those situations where you might have to deliver tough feedback or handle conflict.
Oh yeah, those are never fun.
Nope, those are the moments where those strong interpersonal skills really matter.
So it's that whole package, isn't it? The technical expertise, the analytical skills, and then those all-important soft skills. That's what makes a truly successful senior auditor. It sounds like a demanding but really rewarding role.
It is. And one thing I find really inspiring about this profession is that it's always evolving. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to tackle, and new ways to make a real impact.
Speaking of impact, before we wrap up this deep dive, I'd love to get your take on the future of auditing. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for senior auditors in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. Hmm. I think one of the biggest challenges will be staying ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. Like we've been talking about things like data analytics, artificial intelligence, and blockchain are already transforming the field, and that pace of change is only going to get faster. Senior auditors will need to be proactive about embracing these new technologies and developing the skills to use them effectively.
So continuous learning is more crucial than ever.
Absolutely. But it's not just about technical skills. I also think senior auditors will need to become even more adaptable and agile in their thinking. The business world is getting more complex and interconnected, which means audits are getting more complex too. Senior auditors will need to be able to think critically, connect the dots between different areas of a business and see the big picture.
So it's about being a strategic thinker, not just a rule follower.
Exactly. And finally, I think ethical considerations will continue to be a major focus for senior auditors. As businesses face more and more scrutiny from regulators, investors, and the public, senior auditors will play a crucial role in ensuring transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct.
So it's not just about numbers, it's about upholding the integrity of the whole financial system.
Well said. And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've talked about the challenges. What about the opportunities? What excites you about the future of auditing?
That's a great question to reflect on. For me, it's the potential to really make a difference in the world. Senior auditors are in a unique position to promote transparency, fight fraud, and ensure that businesses are operating ethically and responsibly.
Mhm.
And in a world facing so many challenges, that's a role I find incredibly meaningful.
Couldn't agree more. It's a really exciting time to be in the auditing profession, and I'm confident that the next generation of senior auditors will rise to the occasion and make a real impact.
And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of senior auditors. We hope you've gained some valuable insights, discovered some new resources, and feel inspired to take your auditing career to the next level.
Remember, the journey to becoming a successful senior auditor is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace continuous learning, stay curious, and never be afraid to challenge yourself.
And if you ever feel overwhelmed, remember you're not alone. There are tons of resources out there, from professional organizations to online communities, to support you every step of the way.
So go out there, make those numbers sing, and leave your mark on the world of auditing.
Until next time, happy auditing.